Okay. Good morning. So we have a few participants with us this morning, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask all of you to go ahead and find a tall seated posture as I get myself settled in. As I mentioned, I am seeing if I can find some solutions with audio. So this is zero audio assistance. And this is audio assistance. Is that better? Yes? No? Do we want the volume down? No. Okay. Are we okay, Lucy? Did I see a thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up. Okay, awesome. All right. So with your tall seated spine, let's go ahead and start some breath work here. I'm going to ask you to make sure that the knees and the heels are in alignment with one another. Again, we really just want to be all about alignment and all about the breath first and foremost. We're always going to come back to that in our practice. Offer a couple of full, gentle exhales. Settle into this space as we set our intention this morning on reorientation. I am really kind of wrestling with being oriented or disoriented, so to speak, in this chaos and this different new space that we're all kind of experiencing. And that word keeps coming back to me. Feeling disoriented, where does my orientation lie? And so I was led to the voice version of Romans chapter 8, verses 7 through 9. It says, you see, a mind focused on the flesh is declaring war against God. It defies the authority of God's law and is incapable of following his path. So it is clear that God takes no pleasure in those who live oriented to the flesh. But you do not live in the flesh. You live in the Spirit, assuming, of course, that the Spirit of God lives in you. We do not live oriented to this world. Our orientation belongs with Christ. In that word, orient, the verb means to align or position something in relation to new and strange surroundings. To align or position something in relation to new and strange surroundings. To orient yourself to Christ means to be concerned with Christ, to be focused upon Christ, to be preoccupied with Christ, to be adapted to and in favor of Christ. Offer just a couple more breaths here in the space as you consider your orientation, heart, mind, and body right now. And if you'd like, you can join me with hands at heart center, either in prayer or just hands pressed against the chest as we pray together. Father, as we struggle through this time of chaos, just in everyday life, we experience it, but especially now, we want to be oriented to you above all else. May you help us to eliminate distractions, that we would be able to be focused on you, what it is that you're doing in our hearts and our minds and our world. God, may your kingdom come. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen. So go ahead and release the hands to the lap. Turn the palms upward here and just bring the elbows slightly back a little bit. So what this does is kind of align the shoulder blades back behind the heart a little bit further. Lace up the belly and imagine that you're tucking the rib cage into the hip bones here. I'm going to ask you to drop that right ear down towards the right shoulder and lift the left ear towards the ceiling. We're just finding a little bit of a stretch here on the left side of your neck. And if you'd like a little bit more of a stretch, you can take the back side of that left hand and place it at the base of the spine behind you. Notice if you're leaning forward, and just try and align the back side of the body up against that imaginary wall behind you and lace up the belly as well. Dropping that right ear maybe a little bit lower if you choose. And so I'm going to ask you to keep the head and the neck very still for just another breath. And as we come out of this, again, you're looking for stillness in the head and neck. Just for now, go ahead and return that left hand to the lap very gently. Notice if one shoulder is higher than the other, make that adjustment. And when you are ready, bring the head and the neck back to a neutral space. Nice and slow. So just be here for a breath. If you start to get dizzy or disoriented physically, just go ahead and find a quiet space. Take a look at something in front of you and align with the breath. Let's try the opposite side. As you drop that left ear down, the right ear rises. Noticing the alignment in the torso. If it's changed, just make your adjustments. And if you choose, the right hand, back side of the right hand goes back behind the base of the spine. Take your own inventory here of the torso, the shoulders. Leaving the head and neck very still. Let's bring that right hand back to the lap. Just be here for a breath, and when you're ready, return the head and neck to a neutral space, nice and slow. Again, be here for another breath or two. And when you choose, go ahead and start to offer some movements with the shoulders, rising the shoulders all the way up high towards the ears, and then exhaling them back and down along the spine. You can exaggerate this if you'd like by opening up those elbows nice and wide, but just start to see if you can create some big rotations with the shoulder blades here, and maybe even attaching that movement to your breath. Inhaling as the shoulders rise, exhaling as they draw back and down along the spine. Offer one more big rotation here, and then we're going to start to move this in the opposite direction. Inhaling back and up, exhaling forward and down. On that forward exhalation, see if you can pull the shoulder blades away from one another back there, almost as if you're wrapping wings around the side of the body. Find some space in between the shoulder blades with that. If you'd like to start to go ahead and invite the chin and the tail into this movement, and you can start to make your way into some cat-cows right here. Moving with your breath. As I read to you again from Romans chapter 8. This is from the Message version, verses 5 through 8. Those who think that they can do it on their own, they end up obsessed with measuring their own moral muscle. But they never get around to exercising it in real life. Those who trust God's actions in them find that God's Spirit is in them, living and breathing God. Obsession with self in these matters is a dead end. Attention to God leads us out into the open, into a spacious, free life. Offer a couple more of those cat-cows here. The Message version goes on to say, focusing on the self is the opposite of focusing on God. When we turn our orientation to Christ, everything else fades. And the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Amen. So find a neutral spine again, nice and tall. And when you're ready, let's try a spinal twist, bringing the chin over that right shoulder. The right hand to the side of the chair, the left hand to the outside of that right knee. And if you'd like to use the back of your chair to kind of pull into this a little bit further, maybe that'll offer you a bigger stretch. Do your best to make sure that the knees don't buckle inward and that that right sitting bone stays nice and grounded along with the left. Both sitting bones anchored in. Growing taller with each inhale and maybe twisting a little bit further with your exhale. Recommitting shoulder blades behind the heart. And on your next exhale, go ahead and make your way back to the center, finding that neutral space for a couple of breaths. And let's try the opposite side. Chin first, and then the left hand, and then the right. Continuing to use the breath to get you taller with each inhale and maybe further with each exhale. And when you are ready, make your way back to the center, neutral space here. So if you have that golf ball, I'm going to ask you to start to roll that golf ball underneath your feet. One of the things that I talk about often during our practice is about grounding and alignment. And one of the things that we can do to make sure that our grounding is always stable is to make sure of our grounding space. And so for us as humans, we're typically on our feet often. So all you're doing is you're just taking that golf ball and you're rolling it around on your feet as much as you possibly can. If you don't have a golf ball with you this morning, that's okay. Maybe start to take some rotations in the ankles. Maybe even tuck the toes underneath you, press the toes into the mat, see if you can get a stretch on the top of the foot. So I'm just going to ask you to take a minute or two to really warm up the feet. If you do have a golf ball this morning, just make sure that you practice that painting of the bottom of the foot equally between both feet. First Peter chapter 2. This is the kind of life that you've been invited to. The kind of life that Christ lived. He suffered everything that came his way so that you would know that it could be done and also know how to do it step by step. Because he kept himself oriented to the Father. And friends, I have to confess to you that this feeling of being disoriented, it has been very shaking for me. And there's so many areas of this. It's not just with this online class offering. There's so many different layers to this for me. And when I can't see what God is doing, and when I can't feel like God is present, my orientation has to go back to the Word of God. That becomes the thing that grounds me. When I can't feel or see or sense, I can read the Word and be reoriented to the Scriptures, therefore reoriented to the Father and reoriented to the Son. So now that you've warmed up the feet a little bit, go ahead and place that golf ball aside, let it roll across the room. We're done with it for now. We're going to bring the right knee into the chest. See if you can interlace the fingers on the front of that right knee and pull that in as tightly as you can. Offer some rotations there on the ceiling with the knee. So see if you can make some big circles on the ceiling with that. And notice here if the shoulder blades came away from the backside of the heart. If you start to kind of scrunch the shoulders over, just sit as tall as you can with this and make sure that you're making it those big circles. So we're warming up the hip. If you want to, you can even take some movements in the ankles with this. Just kind of play around with that for a moment or two. And then I'm going to ask you to start to move that rotation in the opposite direction. So whatever direction you've chosen first, just take it in the opposite. And you might be someone who can even attach this movement to breath, inhaling and exhaling, finding a rhythm in that breath and a rhythm in the movement. We're going to let that foot come back to the floor here, and let's try the opposite side. So just interlacing the fingers around the front of the left knee, pulling that in nice and tight, finding some movement. Maybe the ankle moves, maybe the toes reach out away from one another here. And let's try that rotation in the opposite direction. And when you are ready, allow the foot back to the mat. We're going to widen out the knees here, finding our happy baby posture. So remember, we're just walking out those feet as wide as we can get them. This is where your block comes in handy. Placing that on the floor out in front of you. And see if you can find a lengthened spine here. So again, alignment and breath is your biggest focus. And once you find some space here, maybe you're someone that can come all the way to the floor. So just figure out what that feels like for you, and then maybe start to move that from side to side, inhaling to one side as you rock the shoulders into the knee, and then exhaling to the other side. Psalm 73. You see, my heart overflowed with bitterness and cynicism, and I felt as if someone had stabbed me in the back, but I didn't know the truth. I've been acting like a stupid animal towards you, God. But look at this. You are still holding my right hand, and you have been all along. Even though I was angry and hard-hearted, you gave me good advice. When it's all over, you will receive me into your glory. The Standard Version says, I am continually with you and you hold my right hand. Friend, that is orientation. I am oriented to him. Go ahead and make your way to a stillness in the center. See if you can sink down just a little bit further here. One more big exhale as you sink down in, and when you're ready, come back up to a tall spine. Placing that block aside for now, we're going to walk the feet together here, and I want to invite you into your sun salutations. I miss doing these with you guys. We have done these to some really beautiful songs together. So sun salutations in a chair can be done either seated or standing. You can start with hands at heart center. Inhaling as the hands go all the way up high. Exhaling as you forward fold, reaching for the shins or the toes. Find a deep exhale there. Inhale halfway up. See if you can find a lengthened spine here. Exhale again, forward fold, reach down. On your next inhale, widen out the arms, sweep them all the way up. Palms come together at the top of that inhale, and then we exhale, hands to heart center. So again, let's try. Inhale, hands up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, wide arms high. Palms come together at the top. And exhale, forward fold. Outside the chair, it might look like this. Just offer a few more of those. Remember why it is that you're here, friends. For me, this practice reorients me. When I'm reminded to move and breathe. Offer 2 more of those full series. Take your time. Once you've completed that last one, if you're not already standing, go ahead and come to standing, and we're going to make our way into our downward facing dog on the back of our chair, maybe the front of your chair, whatever it is that you choose here to find that lengthened spine. I'm going to turn my chair here just to show you what that might look like for you. We're just simply looking for a space where we can bring the hands no further than shoulder distance apart, and we're going to walk the feet back here. See if you can find a lengthened spine as you continue to walk back. Maybe dropping the chest, sinking the hips as far away from the fingertips as you can, and perhaps even bringing the ears right in between the biceps. Notice here if you're tucking the chin, and just bring it to a neutral space, pull the belly all the way up against the spine. And if you'd like to, you can start to paddle this out. So that just means simply lifting one heel and then the other. We call this walking the dog. And when you are ready, go ahead and walk the feet towards the chair again. So we're going to find our standing posture here. Now again, for me, orientation means that I really need to make sure that I'm grounded and I'm in a space of feeling safety and rooted. That starts with our feet. So we are going to do a little bit of footwork here. I'm going to ask you as you're standing, start to kind of do some heel lifts. So we're going to work with the calves a little bit, and I'm going to lift all the way up high, and I'm going to drop it back down, and then lift, and then drop. And see if you can find even a rhythm with your breath here, perhaps inhaling as you rise, and exhaling as you drop. If you'd like to, you can even start to kind of rock back on the heels, opening up those toes nice and wide as you rock those back. If you lift the toes and open them as you pull back on this, you'll find a bigger stretch in the feet. Coming back to a stillness when you're ready. Good. And let's go ahead and try another little stretch for the top of the feet. So here's what I'm doing is I'm curling my toes underneath on the floor. And then what I'm going to look for is a little bit of rocking motion from side to side here with the knee. So what that will do, with the heel. So what that will do, if I take the heel from side to side, almost like a windshield wiper, what that will do is offer me a little bit of a stretch on the top of the foot. And so maybe you want to hang out on the pinky side, and maybe you want to hang out a little bit more on the big toe side of the foot. You might even find a little bit of a stretch on the front side of the shin with this. Let's go ahead and try the opposite side. If you're feeling sassy today, let go of the chair and practice a little bit of balance with this. So remember, on that grounded foot, the one that we're not moving back and forth right now, we don't want to be gripping in with the toes. We want to be really pressing in on all four corners at the bottom of that foot. That's what's going to get us a little bit of balance. Good. So when you're ready, go ahead and come to a stillness again. At the chair, I'm going to ask you to step your right foot back into a warrior posture. So warriors on the bottom side of the body, it's just basically the front foot, all 5 toes are forward. The back foot, all 5 toes are pointed towards a 45-degree angle from the front foot. And remember, the bigger the distance between the feet, the bigger the challenge. Big distance, big challenge, small distance, small challenge here. So again, we can be holding on to the chair here or not. But when you're ready, I'm going to ask you to reach the right hand all the way up high towards the ceiling. And here we're going to come onto that front foot. So just simply lift off the heel of that front foot, which is your left foot, I believe. Go ahead and lift all the way off the heel there. So we're kind of on the ball of that front foot, engaging the calf, and then drop it, and then lift it again, and then drop it, and again, and drop. Hold this nice and steady. And when you're ready, coming back to a neutral standing posture. So stepping that right foot forward. Let's try the opposite side. Left foot steps back, find your warrior footing. Maybe both hands are on the chair. Maybe both hands are off the chair. But don't forget, this is going to challenge your balance a little bit. We're going to go ahead and lift that right foot this time onto the ball of the foot, and then drop it back down. So figure out what works for you. Offering those few lifts, and then making your way to a stillness. Good. Coming back to a neutral standing posture by stepping that left foot forward. So let's try a little squat here, just as a counter posture for some hip movement. I'm going to ask you to just step back away from the chair slightly. And we're coming into kind of what's called a chair pose in a traditional class. So it just means simply sinking the hips back, not allowing the knees to cross the plane of the toes. And again, maybe the chair is here for balance. Maybe just one hand comes off the chair. Maybe both hands can come to the heart. If you'd like a little bit more cardio with this, you can reach the arms all the way up overhead or wide. Maybe one hand lays on the chair. So just find some options that work for you and lace up the belly nice and tight. Shift the knees back further away from the plane of the toes and poke that tail out. So if you had a curly tail, just imagine that you're lifting that tail up high, trying to touch the back of the head with your curly tail. Pull the belly in and sink down with me just a little bit lower for 3, 2, 1. Good, lift it up, nice and slow. So we're going to try that warrior posture again. Go ahead and step that left foot forward, right foot back. When you're ready, maybe the hands come off the chair. And again, you can get creative with the hands, but we're going to start to lift that left heel, coming all the way onto the ball of the foot. and then dropping it back down. Offer 5 of those movements with your breath. And return to your neutral standing posture when you're ready. You know where we're going, opposite side. Coming back to that neutral standing posture, and then sinking into your chair pose again. Maybe the hands are at heart center. Maybe the fingertips rest on the chair for some balance. Maybe the arms reach up. And if you're still here with me and you'd like a little bit more challenge, go ahead and sink the hips back down a little bit further, pulling the knees back for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good job, ladies. And make your way back up. We're going to offer a little bit of a back bend here. So taking the palms to the lower back here. So heels of the hands come just to the opposite side of the tailbone. And as you press this in, it's kind of a standing camel posture, but really, again, make sure that you're nice and grounded, keeping the eyes open. Start to press the hips forward. Maybe bring the elbows towards one another back there, lifting the chin, and just finding a back bend that serves you. Coming up and out of that, we're going to try 2 more of these little back bends. Take them as far as you'd like. And 1 more. Good, making your way into a standing posture. So let's try another little practice here with regard to the balance. Again, I've talked to my classes over the couple weeks prior to this, as we were talking about what it is that we need to challenge ourselves with, and balance is almost always the answer. As we grow older, our balance has a tendency to change. And our balance has a lot to do with our standing posture, our hip strength, our ankle strength, our foot strength, our knee strength. So as we're here, I'm going to ask you to just simply stay as close to the chair as you are comfortable. And we're going to try what's called a standing pigeon pose. Now, I know that this can be really tough on the hips, so I want you to be really mindful of honoring your body, but it kind of starts with a modified looking tree pose. It just kind of starts with crossing the ankle either over the shin or over top of the knee. So it can be nice and low, or it can be high. But what you want is you want that ankle to completely go past the outside of the opposite thigh. So you get to choose which one you start with. And once you're here, let's try sinking the hips down. So remember that chair pose that we just did? It's kind of like that, except it's on 1 foot. And if you're feeling sassy, you can just hover the hand, or you can take the hands off the chair. But notice the belly. Pull the belly all the way up against the spine. That is your core strength right there. So maybe yours is both hands, and maybe you're just crossing over and just standing here for a moment. You don't have to sink down. You don't have to take your hands off the chair. What we're looking for here is alignment and breath, orientation to the one who gives it to us. When you're ready, let's try the other side, making your way out of that gently. Good. And crossing the ankle over wherever you choose. Maybe sinking the hips down. It's a lovely thing. And in chair yoga, when we're practicing balancing postures, there's something very comforting about having that chair nearby. This is our orientation, amen? Like, we know that we have the ability to really hold on to something that is not going to allow us to fall. And ultimately, I think on a spiritual level, that's what this boils down to, with being oriented to Christ. We know that he's always right there. We need to get quiet and come into the scriptures and the truth of who he is. He does not change. You can make your way out of this if you haven't already. Take some counter postures for you. So maybe it's that squat again, just kind of sinking down low. Maybe for you, it's your downward facing dog. Take another minute or so and just kind of explore what it is that your body needs here. You guys moved a lot so far. We're not quite done with you, but I really want you to make sure that you are honoring your body. Again, to orient oneself means to align or position something in relation to new and strange surroundings. Romans chapter 8, verse 8 in the voice. It is clear that God takes no pleasure in those who live oriented to the flesh. But you do not live in the flesh, beloved. You live in the Spirit, assuming, of course, that the Spirit of God lives in you. Focusing on the self is the opposite of focusing on God. We must orient ourselves back to him. In Psalm 73, it says, I am continually with you. You hold my right hand and you guide me with your counsel. You orient me, God. In the Message version, it says, you've taken my hand and you've wisely and tenderly led me, and then you bless me. If you haven't already, go ahead and make your way back to your chair. We're going to try just a little bit of core strength here. We call it a little bit of ab work. Once you find yourself in your chair there, you might want to grab your strap for this. You might not need it, but if you have one, go ahead and for you not nearby. And so we're going to start with some movement of just simply bringing one knee up and then the other knee up, but finding a nice tall spine and maybe leaning back slightly into the chair. So from the side, it looks kind of like this, a leaning back, but making sure that we're not actually using the back of the chair for this. So our bum stays towards the edge of the front of the chair. And as we lean back, we're already engaging some ab work here. And this might be enough for you. You can take the hands to the side of the chair if that helps you to brace a little bit. And we're going to lift one knee at a time. See if you can start to attach this to breath. Exhaling as you lift. Inhaling as you drop. Now this is where I'm going to ask you to get a little bit creative for what works with your body. I'm going to give you some options here. Maybe you're someone who can lift both knees at the same time. Maybe you're someone who would like to use the strap for this. And again, so here's some balancing tips. We want to really be mindful that our chair is nice and structured, so the chair legs are on the floor. That's what our grounding is. But what's really grounded here for us physically is our sitting bones. So as you kind of figure out what it is that you want to play with here, what I can do is I can bring the strap to my feet. I can lean back a little bit, bring those knees in, and then maybe lift this up with the strap. So now I'm kind of challenging a little bit of balance on my sitting bones with this. But again, we want to make sure that the shoulders aren't curved over the heart. We want to make sure that we've got a nice tall spine there. Keep the belly laced up. Take yourself out of whatever posture you've chosen. And then your counter posture is probably going to be that forward fold or happy baby. So knees can be wide or knees can be together, but just find a stretch for the lower back. Again, keep in mind that your belly supports your lower back and your back supports your belly. The psalmist says, "You've taken my hand. You've wisely and tenderly led me. And then you bless me." Staying oriented to God. Sometimes it takes whatever we've got, whatever energy and strength we've got. The best way to do that when we can't see or feel Him working is to go back to His word, the truth. Take a couple of cat-cows there as a counter posture whenever you're done. So you can just start to kind of make your way out of this if you haven't already. And with that strap nearby, we're going to do a little bit of shoulder work. Some of you already know where this is going. This is one of my faves called shoulder flossing. So we're going to open up the wide area of this strap and we're going to see if we can find some movement here. Inhaling as you lift and exhaling as you drop. And maybe see if you can find a little bit of challenge by bringing the hands closer together. Now again, we want to make sure as we're lifting and dropping that the elbows don't bend and we're not going to allow one shoulder to creep in at a time. Lacing up the belly nice and tight. Just take a couple more of those movements each direction. Remember to sit tall. Good, and last one. Go ahead and get rid of that strap. We're done with that for today. Bringing the hands to the sides of the chair. We're going to reach that right arm all the way up high. See if you can reach it over the top of the body, finding a rib cage opening here. Lift it up with the breath. And return the right hand to the chair. Good, let's try the left side. Inhale it up. Exhale it over. Inhale it up. And exhale it down. Try a couple more of those. Each side, your breath, your movement. And if it serves you to kind of hang out in that reached space, you can do that. We just want to hold the posture, not the breath. Take your time and offer one more reach on each side. Coming back to a nice tall neutral spine. And while we're nice and warm here, let's try another spinal twist. Starting with the right side, chin comes first, then the right hand, and then the left. Notice how much more space you have here. Praise the Lord for the way that He has created your body to thrive, to be nourished with the breath and with movement. On the next exhale, making your way back to the center. Recommitting the tall spine before we go into the opposite side. Chin first over that left shoulder, then the left hand, and then the right. Making your way out of that twist with your exhale. Take a couple more cat-cows here, and we're going to make our way into a stillness. Again, Psalm 73. I am continually with you. You hold my right hand. You guide me with your counsel. You have wisely and tenderly led me, Lord, and then you bless me. A mind focused on the flesh is at war against God. Focusing on the self is the opposite of focusing on God. We must reorient ourselves, take ourselves into a fresh orientation through the scriptures, through His word. One of my favorite verses of all time, it does have to do with this idea of reorienting the mind. This is the Isaiah 26:3, but this is a little bit different version. This is from the Amplified version. It says, you will keep in perfect and constant peace the one whose mind is steadfast, that is committed and focused and oriented to you in both inclination and character, because he trusts and takes refuge in you with hope and confident expectation. If you haven't already, go ahead and find a stillness there. So for some of you, you may choose to have your final meditation in your chair. For some of you, you might make your way onto the floor. So wherever it is that you choose to be, I'm going to sit here with you for a good 3 to 4 minutes. And I'm just going to ask you to really protect your headspace. Protect your heart space. Come into a focused orientation on your breath and the one who's given it to you today. And as you maintain that orientation, that focus on the presence of the one who moved heaven and earth for your heart, you can begin to move your fingers and your toes around. Rotating your ankles and your wrists. If you're on the mat, you can make your way onto your left side. If you're in the chair, just kind of shift your weight comfortably, however you choose. The devotion I'm reading this morning is from Heaven Calling. He says, sometimes your difficulties can be so all-encompassing that it eclipses the light and the awareness, the orientation of my presence. But look beyond your difficulty, beloved. Look for me. Orient yourself to me. You are not alone, nor have you been forgotten. I understand the difficulties and the sting of this world. I lost my beloved son to the cruel machinery of a world gone mad. But I also overcame the darkness with life. Through my spirit and the eyes of faith, you can look beyond your troubles, beyond the visible, and find me. Orient yourself to me. I'm still here. And while you may not see me, I see you. And everything that happens in this world is only for a moment in comparison to eternity. In heaven, my child, I will wipe away every tear that you've ever shed. You will never experience disorientation again. What you see is temporary. What I offer you is eternal. If you're not already there, you can make your way up to a seated posture, nice and slow. And once you arrive, if you'd like to, you can join me with hands at heart center as we pray together. God, we are so grateful for your word. We have it in so many formats. May we reorient ourselves to your scriptures, your truth, your heart, your character, and your nature. Thank you for offering us your Son. We want to glorify you and be light bearers. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you. Join me again.